If you do the work consistently and use every day as a reset, because yesterday's food can't keep me full today. If I never run again or never ride again, it don't mean shit right now. It's the moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University. Today we have a very special guest who we have had the honor of seeing before us on Dave Meltzer's Office Hours. He is a television personality, a director, a life coach, an entrepreneur, and an interventionist. My goodness. We are sitting down with the one and only Mike Diamond. What is happening, my man?
What is up, dude? That your voice was straight out of like wrestling. That was so good.
It would be nice if I could pronounce any of the words, but I think if I do it passionately enough, nobody will notice.
Yeah, and that's how we keep it relatable, Mike.
Yeah, right.
We mess up.
So good. And he's like all jacked up. So he's like the wrestler that introduces himself and then goes and body slams someone.
I appreciate that. So Alan and I were digging into your story before we got on here, and I have learned so much about you. It's so interesting that you have been through so much in your life to get to where you are today. So can you just kind of take us back to, I know you've been through a lot, right? But can you take us through some of the more impactful times in Mike Diamond's life? I know you've dealt with addiction, and can you just take us back into your past a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, let's start. I was born in Perth, and Perth geographically is the most isolated capital city in the world. So, to understand that, when I was born in Perth, this was like the Stone Age. No internet, didn't have good mentors. I live in Australia, which is a socialist country. You don't dream big. There's a lid. There's only so much you can do. And so I was around these people with a fixed mindset. And then I'm a kid that's undiagnosed dyslexic, right? So I had these learning issues that I didn't understand. And then I was around, unfortunately, my parents, really mentally and physically abusive. And so I got into trouble young, man, 12 years old, started drinking, started getting into pot, started getting into trouble. I was a super athlete, but I had emotional and mental issues and addiction issues that I didn't realize. So I got kicked out of school at 16, went from one school to another school. And then I realized that I had to get out of this environment. I was thinking I wanted to come to America, but I said I had to get out of Perth. And my first escape was to go to the East Coast, which was Sydney. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have... because I got through school, I graduated, I knew I could act and I knew I could sing. Acting I was really good at. I could just figure that I knew how I could perform. I said, all right, that's my way out. Maybe I'll go to acting school in Sydney and I'll just get to America. I was very focused on, I knew I could get here. I didn't give myself an out. I'm like, I'm going to America and that's it. So I always had, now I look back with all the coaching I do, NLP, law of attraction, I had the ability to always think greater than my environment. And I could always put on that frequency and attract those things in my life because I could always think greater than my environment.
Mm. So again, you dealt with a lot of things early on. Addiction. You also at one point almost died when I believe, what was it? It burst?
In 2017, my appendix burst and I nearly died of septic shock.
Oh my goodness. Do you think, and Alan and I have interviewed so many amazing people who have these incredible stories of what they've been through. Do you think that some people, maybe most people, have to hit their own custom version of rock bottom in order to really fly to the highest level that they're capable of? Because we've seen that across the board almost.
That's a really good question. I think it's two ways. I don't think you need to suffer pain to have that epiphany. Unfortunately, I think most of us do suffer pain to have the epiphany. I think pain is a good thing because it stretches us. And I don't ever regret the pain I went through because I'm so self-reliant. I got myself sober. I came to America with nothing. I've opened up multiple businesses. I've shot TV shows. I write books. I do interventions. I've laid on detox floors to get people sober and save their lives. That only came because I knew how to work, like they say in jiu-jitsu, off your back, like off the guard. I have no fear going forward. because I wasn't given anything. I had to figure out how to get it. And I think there's two types of people, and I think it's in your DNA. I think it's everyone, I think deep down, the universe calls us all, right? The universe intuitively says, this is your purpose, follow it. What happens is the first part of life, it's the environment and the people. So when I coach people, if I first figure out their map of reality, and their map of reality is what they've been exposed to in their life. They've gathered a certain amount of information from the people, the places, the food they eat, the music they heard, the trauma they have, right? That's the basis of in your subconscious mind, the first 7 years. And if I'm working with someone that's stuck or lacking purpose, I always say to them, like, forget how much money you want to make. Money is the effect if the cause is right.
Right.
Okay. So I say, if you had all the money in the world and all the time in the world, what would you do? And they go, I'd do this. I'm like, why aren't you doing it? Well, stop. Do you see you already put up a wall? So already I know that person is off purpose.
Interesting. Right.
Right? Because it's like this. You can't figure it out while you're moving. That's like someone saying, well, when I get this, I'll be doing this. No. You do it now. Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, when I make a certain amount of money, I'll be happy. Bullshit.
Right.
You'll never be happy, because once you get to that point, you're going to feel dissatisfied, because the goal is not the happiness. The goal should be growth. Right? You've always got to have a goal to expand and grow. And you never arrive.
Right.
It's work that has no end. You know what I mean? You've constantly got to be a student of life, because everything that comes in teaches us something. So when you follow the growth mindset, or I like to say the flexible mindset, you become a palm tree, right? When the hurricane shows up. Palm trees, if you watch them, they only bend, they never break. You know what I mean? You become flexible. So when the information comes in, you bounce off it. You learn to, maneuver things. And I think I don't feel like now, I'll be honest with you, I could die tomorrow. I have no issues with that. I've lived 10,000 lives. I have no issues with death. I don't. For the body, I've done so much stuff. Every morning when I wake up at 3:34 a.m., I stick to the same routine. I wake up, I meditate, I stretch, I work out, I do everything the same, and my life is easy. The rituals may seem hard. Like if someone took my life, someone said to me, oh, I've been going for 5 years straight like this. I read a book a week. Like I just program myself, because I associate so much regret with not following through.
So, Mike, you talked on your Instagram. There was a clip, and I forget. It might have been on Dave's show, The Playbook, but you talked about regret. And to me, the way you know that you're on purpose, for me personally, you've read The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware, have you yet? Okay. One of my favorite books of all time. Got to interview her, by the way. Absolute sweetheart.
Wow.
Also from Australia. So the number one regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. Okay? Such a huge addiction is, other people's approval. Okay? Now, I was listening to a Brian Tracy book recently. He said, ask yourself the following question. If you were to have $1 million in your bank account right now, would you do anything? What would you do differently? And when you answer that, go do that. And I was sitting in my car listening to this, and I'm like, I am so blessed. I would do everything I'm doing at a greater level. And I feel so blessed by that, genuinely. I would also buy a home immediately with my girlfriend, Emilia. But that we're in the process of doing that right now, right? So I'm like, oh my God, I'm so blessed. My question for the listeners, anyone who can't answer the way I just answered, what do you recommend for them as an actual step to do the work to get to that place? Because I didn't start there. I remember, a time in my life where I would have been like, whoa, I would change X, Y, Z all the way. So what do you tell them?
First thing is this. These are three things that people always focus on. They always say, I never have enough time, I never have enough money, and I never have enough resources. Right? Why can't you achieve it? Don't have the time. Okay, let me break down your 24 hours. If you're sleeping 10 hours a day, you're already shot in the foot. And I tell people, if the average American lives to 80 years old, subtract your age from 80, that's how many summers you got left. Stop wasting time. Only do things that bring you value, right? Right. Secondly, money. You don't need money. You know why? If I can be of service to you and bring you value, you pay me for the service.
Mm-hmm.
Be of service to other people in whatever you do. Okay, there's a famous story that people talk about, and it's the story about the cathedral. There's three guys, and they're working. And the guy goes over to the first guy, and he says, what do you do? And he says, I'm a bricklayer. He goes to the second guy, what do you do? You know, I'm building. And the third guy, what do you do? I'm building a cathedral. Now, the moral of the story says that the guy building the cathedral has a purpose. The cathedral has a purpose. I don't look at it like that. I reverse the story and go, there's three guys working on a cathedral. Guy goes over to the first guy. What are you doing? Goes, I'm a bricklayer. It's my job. Okay. Goes over to the second guy. What are you doing? I'm a bricklayer. It's my career. Okay. Goes over to the third guy. What are you doing? I'm a bricklayer. It's my calling. Whether I'm building a fucking barn, right? Or working on a toilet or building a fence, I bring value to other people. With my inclination, right, as a builder. So you work out your inclination, you work on your skills, and then you be of service to other people, and you're recession-proof. Third thing, be resourceful, right? Someone says to me, it's COVID. Great. Can't work out. Why? The gym's not open. Really? Really? The gym's not open. What are you, a professional bodybuilder? What are you talking about? You can train in your house, right? You can do push-ups. You can do sit-ups. You can go and run 10 miles. Be resourceful. There was a guy called Emil Zepepek. He was the greatest long-distance runner of all time, and no one really knows him. When he lived in the Czech Republic, what Emil did was, it was too cold outside. It was like minus 60 degrees. And he sat there and he said, I'm training for the marathon. No one knew this. And he said, what am I going to do? I can't run it. He would run in the snow, but there was a point where he knew it's too cold, right? He'll die. So he went and looked at his bathtub and he said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put towels in the bathtub and run a little hot water. And I'm going to visualize myself running. And he would run in the bathtub on the towels for 4 hours. He would then go out in the snow and run with boots on. Right? Whatever he had, he would carry. He gets a call and there's a race in Prague. No one's going to take him. He rides his bike 220 miles through the night and turns up to the race. He runs in the 5,000 meters and 10,000 meters with zero sleep and wins. He gets into the Olympic Games. He wins 2 gold medals. He says, I want to run in the marathon. He's never run a marathon. They're like, you can't. He's like, I want to run in the marathon. He goes up against the British world champion. He's running next to the British world champion, marathon champion. He won the 5 and 10,000. Now he's running a marathon. That's a big stretch. And he's running next to the Brit. And he says, are we running fast enough? And the British guy said, I'm going to trick this guy. He goes, no. So Emil takes off. He takes off and breaks a world record. The British world champion couldn't catch him and got a cramp. They said, what happened? He goes, I thought he was joking. I couldn't catch the guy. Greatest thing he said, he told them how he trained. And they said, would you ever train differently now that you have money? He says, never. It gives me an edge against everyone else.
My goodness.
Do you see what I'm saying? Time, money, resources. Always take those 3 with you and say to myself, where am I spending my time? I don't need money. If I be of service, be resourceful. Be resourceful. And then that way you're recession proof.
Do you think the drive is off for people in terms of, obviously that person was so driven to success in whatever it was, their version of success. Do you think it's the drive? Like if you really want it bad enough, won't you find a way?
Yes, I think it's fear. I think you have to eliminate fear. I think you have to say to yourself, I'm going to die anyway. Look, like I say, you don't find a moving van or a U-Haul truck behind a hearse at a funeral. You take nothing with you. I think you should write out your eulogy, write out what you want people to say about you when you're dead, stick it on the wall, and then be willing to pay the price. I always say successful people do the work no matter how they feel. Unsuccessful people only work when they feel good or feel right. Well, how about this? What if you never feel good or feel right?
Right.
You know what I mean? People say they lack motivation, but that's bullshit. What it is we're motivated to avoid pain and gain pleasure, right? So at 4 a.m, if you write down the goal, I want to wake up at 4 a.m, and the alarm goes off and you don't get up. Why? You're not unmotivated. You just want the pleasure of the fucking bed, right? You're like, oh, it's so comfortable. Why would I get up? Look, it's simple. Cold showers aren't going to kill you. They're just annoying. They're not hard. It's just a cold fucking shower. Stand in it. Yeah, but it's just a cold shower. Like it's 30 seconds of your life. Ooh. So it's like if you can delay that much gratification, the difference between ordinary and extraordinary, you just got to do a little extra to the ordinary. Mm-hmm. And the great thing is everyone wants a quick fix. Everyone thinks that, it's going to happen in seconds, and no one's willing. Look, it's a great saying. If you don't do the work in the dark, you get exposed in the bright lights.
We heard you say that yesterday.
Can't fudge it, right? You can't fudge that shit.
Right. Mike,
I just want to pull the string. So in the intro or in the preamble, we were talking about perception and reality when it comes to Instagram, and you kind of just mentioned perception and playing the long game. Can you go into your take on all of that?
Yeah, look, it's like this. I have nothing against Instagram. I think it's great. I have nothing against social media stars. I think they're great. Like, look, here's this. Do I have anything against, someone said the other day about that Logan Paul. I'm like, why would I hate the guy? I don't hate the guy. If that guy is going to pick a fight with Mayweather and Mayweather's going to fight him, he's a fucking genius. Right. Like, seriously. But here's the thing at the end of the day. When you look at the man in the mirror yourself, who are you? Mm-hmm. That's all that matters. Look, my business partner, I'm working on my supplement company, and I went to someone very, very successful named Sam Bakhtiar. Mm-hmm. Sam passed just recently. Very sad.
We know
Made
Sam.
a lot of money, had a lot of impact. I went to his funeral. We were very close. We talk all the time. And the impact he had on people was huge because he's so authentic, right? And did so much for people. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, the $200, $300, $400 million, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You die with nothing. So when people get distracted by someone posting a picture or someone doing this, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't buy happiness. Who are you inside? That's all that matters. And you can stand the test of time if it comes from purpose, if you do it for the right reason. And if you don't, you get exposed.
We had Sam on this show, and that's
horrible.
I'm sorry to hear, about your loss, and just that was hard to hear for sure. But but one thing I want to ask you, so right before this show, you were kind enough to give us a compliment that I genuinely want to learn from, and I'd kind of already asked you, and you basically said that our content is really good and that we're authentic. I would argue, and this is just my belief, I think it's because we're fighting so hard in the dark and putting in the work behind the scenes that we're showing up in the lights authentically. What is your take on that? And how do we, there's a bunch of different quotes, right? It's like what you practice for years in private, you'll be rewarded for in public. It's like on graduation day, you didn't just suddenly become a success. No, you're suddenly being rewarded for your 4 years of hard work at university, right? So
right.
How do we convince our listeners of that? Because I personally am the type of person who, like, you got Jeff Bezos on the cardboard box in 1994. You've got Eminem in the trailer park. Like, I have reverence for the work way before the reward, almost to a fault, to where I'm like alone by myself, like working constantly and probably not leveraging perception as much as we probably could. Thankfully, Kevin is like, yo, we also got to market this thing. But you can't just be the best speaker speaking in your driveway, Alan. But anyways, what can we, I do think that's a missing piece for a lot of our listeners, genuinely. And I mean this with love, but I think they want the reward, and I don't know if they want the hard work. What would you tell them?
First of all, I wouldn't try to convince my audience of anything. I just do work, and it's work that has no end. I'll give you an example. The pandemic hit. I did Dave's podcast, and Dave said, "Hey, we should go on a speaking tour together." I said, "Love that." Pandemic hit. I lost 250 speaking gigs. It's like shit. So I sat down and I was like, I always go back to process. I'm like, what am I do? So I sat down and I started writing a new book. I didn't think anything of it. Just started writing. I wrote the new book, 66,000 words in 8 weeks. Had an editor come in. Then I called Meltzer and said, "Hey, Dave, would you write the foreword?" He said, "Yeah." He read the book. He said, "I love it." He goes, "I think you should speak to my editor." Okay. I had some deals from some agents, and all of a sudden I get this editor and he says to me, "Do you want me to edit this book?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "I've edited 500 books. I'm like, "Shit, it's a lot of books." I'm like, "Okay, all right." I'm like, I can do the work. Holy crap. So I sit down with this guy and I have to rewrite this whole fucking book. I have to rewrite 66,000 words. Some of the stuff stayed. We had to rewrite chapters. And I was like, damn it. And when he laid it on me, he said, "I've got 9 best-selling authors. You have a book out that did really well. You're not a bestseller. You're the worst author I have, in the sense of they've got more credibility than you." And I said, "Okay, what's your system?" And he said, "First in the inbox, I work with first." I said, "Okay, so does anyone live on the East Coast?" And he said, "Why would you ask that?" I said, "Well, if I live on the East Coast, I have a 3-hour advantage on me, right, to get in the inbox." He said, "No, they're West Coast." I said, "Okay." So I was like, I've got to get up at 3:00 every morning. Now, for me, it's a process. I've got ADHD and dyslexia, so I have to shift myself physically to get clear. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to run 10 miles a day for the next 6 months, 150, 60 days. I'm going to run 10 miles a day, push my son in the stroller, and write every day, coach my clients. That's it. Put the goal up, done. I rewrote the whole book, ran 1,500 miles. I have ulcerative colitis as well, right? Bad stomach issues. Up at 3:30 every morning. Got the book in, every chapter in before everyone else, right? We're pretty much done. We're shopping to agents, and I've got a lot of testimonials from big celebrity friends. And it's because I was pushed to a place that was so uncomfortable, to a level that if I didn't level up, I knew in myself I would regret it. Because you can't argue with someone that's written 500 books. You just can't. That's like showing up, and Larry Bird's there, and you're like, "Can you teach me to throw 3 throws?" And you argue with him. Right. Why would you go to Larry Bird? Go to Larry the Butcher. Don't go to Larry Bird. Do you know what I mean? So I think that I would tell anyone in the audience, this is the greatest thing in life that no one taught me as a kid. If you do the work consistently and use every day as a reset, because yesterday's food can't keep me full today. If I never run again or never write again, it don't mean shit right now. It's the moment. And you're prepared to focus in the moment and have forward motivation of what you want to achieve, you can close the gap from where you are to where you want to be, because you just stay on course and you're willing to pay the price, and you will pass people. And Tom Brady is the perfect example, because on paper, he shouldn't have won that many Super Bowls. He shouldn't have. He was a sixth pick, right? But he knew if he gets in the game, if you get that one moment, like Holyfield chasing Tyson, he knew he could beat Tyson. He's like, if I fight this guy, I'll beat him. I fought him in the Olympic trials. I can beat this guy. No, you can't. Just get me in front of him. So you've got to do that work and then have faith that you will get a moment. It's not luck. It's preparation meets opportunity. But when the moment fucking strikes, you have to drop the hammer.
We're going to have to do this again, Mike, because we're coming up at the end here. It's been absolute fire. Tell the people where they can learn more about you and what you're into and all of that happy jazz.
Well, if you want to feel good, here's my supplement.
Ooh, okay.
Mind Focus Fuel. It's for cognitive performance, fat burning, and It is like a pre-workout. But you could sit down and drink it, or you could go to the gym. It's the Mike_Diamond on social media, or themikediamond.com if they want to find me. And here's the most important thing. If someone has hit the wall, if they're struggling about their addiction, or they've got an issue, you can DM me. I check my DMs. I'm not a douchebag. Like I will check back, but don't tell me something and then like, hey man, can you give me a shout out? Or like, no, I don't do that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, if you need help, I'll help you. But you know what I'm saying? As some people say, well, could you give me a shout out? It'd really help me. No, that's not going to help you. Me giving you a shout, hey, what's up, Trevor? Like, if it's about your spiritual, mental health, or you need advice, of course I'll help you. But yeah.
We appreciate you coming on the show, Mike. You definitely threw some humdingers in there, got me thinking, and Kevin as well. I know our listeners feel the same way.
Real quick, if you could leave the listeners with a 10-second blip on how to get to the next level of their life, what would you say?
Ooh, that's good. 10 seconds of how to get the next level. Write down 3 things that if you had to die tomorrow, you'd want to do.
Fire.
If you were prescribed, like the doctor said, you've got 24 hours to live, 3 things that you want to do. And then ask yourself, why aren't you doing them now? Because you know what? We could do this podcast, but nothing's guaranteed tomorrow.
Powerful.
My goodness. Thank you so very much, ladies and gentlemen. That was the one and only Mike Diamond.
Talk to you soon.